again, everything about this trial was you have to consider the officer's, perception at the time. But if that officer is unreasonable and that officer has a perception that is either based in implicit bias or something more sinister, then that's an issue. But how do we prove that? How do we prove that? I think the prosecution did a great job showing that Jason Meade's state of mind was that he throws the first punch, he hunts people, and that he is justified in doing that, that he has a righteous release, when he does, commit an act of force while he is on the job. So I'm thankful that he is no longer a sheriff's deputy, but he needs to be behind bars. And so there's that. And then there's also complicated law. You hear these things, reasonable suspicion, objective, officer, and it's all confusing to jurors who don't understand this stuff. And so again, there's such a high threshold to convict an officer, but he clearly can take a life when none of the evidence makes sense. Casey had AirPods in. Casey's gun was on safety. Casey was doing nothing. Casey was accused of no wrongdoing except for by Jason Meade. No other officer on the scene that day said Casey did anything wrong. They didn't see anything. So Jason Meade was the only person that accused Casey of wrongdoing. He took his life, and here we are. But again, I stress that he was not acquitted. There were jurors back there that did not believe him. And we're not sure, why it was hung. It could be that they didn't think that there was enough to convict, but I don't think anybody here in this courthouse, aside from Jason Meade, thinks that he's innocent.
How is the family doing? This has obviously been a long journey for them.
It's a roller coaster, and it is a roller coaster of extremes that we can't imagine. I mean, starting on December 4th when this happened, you heard Casey's grandmother and her screams. You heard the family and what they experienced, and from that point, it took a year to get an indictment. And here we are in 2024, and the trial is just now taking place, and there's a hung jury. And so there's no closure for them. Tamala said to me this week, when do we get a break? And here we are, and they still don't get a break because they have to keep fighting, and it's a shame that, that this is taking place. But what gives me hope is that this has all been a very public trial. It's been, covered, in a great way by you guys. And what we see is how the justice system impacts families start to finish.
Anything else you want to add, Sean, that we didn't touch on?
Again, I just want to make it clear that what we witnessed here today was a jury that was unclear on whether or not Jason Meade was guilty of murder. However, the questions that they asked throughout this trial that were broadcast were, can we find that he did not meet his burden of justification on some of these charges? Whether it was reckless homicide, whether it was murder, whether it was some combination of those three charges that he's charged with, they felt that he did not meet his burden of proving that this was justifiable. And I think that he should strongly consider his next steps, because we firmly believe that he will be convicted in this next trial. Now that he's finally spoken up after 3+ years, we know what he said. We finally know how he positions Casey, and that blueprint on how to get away with murder is no longer going to work. So we're looking forward to that second trial.
What comes next for you all and the family?
Well, there's a civil trial, a civil lawsuit that has been on hold because we didn't have Jason Meade's testimony. So now that he's testified, we can move forward with that civil case. Our goal is to get this family closure. They deserve to be able to rest. They deserve to be able to get the break that Tamala spoke of. And they just deserve justice. That's what they deserve. Casey should be here. And that's really what we see, is that Casey was innocent. Regardless of what the law says in terms of what the jury has to follow, everything that came out in this case regarding the evidence and what happened here is that Casey was innocent. And Jason Meade's word is the only word that says that Casey did anything wrong. So we have to consider how high this bar is that we have to meet to convict officers who are clearly unreasonable and who brag about it beforehand. This was foreseeable. There's no reason why, we should be able to have a trial where we hear someone brag about the fact that they can do this and then allow them to be able to get away with it. And that's what we're witnessing here. So we will not allow him to get away with it. We firmly believe that he will be convicted. And I look forward to the day that Jason Meade is behind bars.
So do you have a timetable for filing the civil suit? How long do you think it might take?
So the civil suit was filed back on December 2nd, 2021. Okay. And there's been a stay on that discovery since that time because he was indicted, and essentially we couldn't compel him to appear for a deposition in order to move forward with that lawsuit. As far as we're concerned, we don't need his testimony. We didn't need it back then. He had made a written statement, which we had already picked apart. And our goal is to pursue justice not just because of what Jason Meade did, but because of what Franklin County allowed him to do. When we heard the sermon about him allegedly joking about police brutality, what he also said was, my bosses are right here. He said, my bosses are right here. I'm a Franklin County SWAT team member, and I hunt people for a living, and I love it. And so it's not just about holding Jason Meade accountable, it's about holding Franklin County and those who allowed this to happen accountable and getting justice for Casey's family. So our next steps are to move forward expeditiously with that lawsuit and, again, to try to encourage the parties involved in the criminal case to set a trial date that does not force this family to wait any longer than they have to.
Perfect, thank you.
All right, thank you all.
Thanks, George. Right there, you were hearing from the family attorney of Sean Walton, the family attorney. The hung jury was called just moments ago. And now here is that moment in the courtroom with the judge.
And I'll declare a mistrial, and let's get what I'm anticipating is to get a status conference meeting to see when everyone's available for the second trial.
So again, this trial is over for now, with the judge declaring a mistrial because of a hung jury unable to come to a verdict in the case against Jason Meade, the former Franklin County Sheriff's deputy accused of killing Casey Goodson Jr. We're going to check in right now with 10 TV's Lacey Crisp, who has been covering this case since the very beginning and has been in the courtroom throughout. Lacey?
Yeah, we are waiting for the attorneys, the defense attorneys and the special prosecutors in the case. I hear the door opening, so we're going to look to see who's actually coming out. And here they are. What do you think about the outcome of this?
Look, first and foremost, we want to thank the jurors for how hard they worked, the amount of dedication and emotion that they put in a difficult case. And unfortunately, this is part of the process. And we believe 100% that every juror gave it their best and tried to be as fair and impartial as possible. And we appreciate that. And as some of you who have been around for a while know that I've gone through this before and had to do a retrial on a police case. And as Yogi Bear said, it's deja vu all over again. So but I mean, I couldn't have much more respect for the jurors and the effort that they gave. I think you guys could see the emotions on them and the frustration and stuff. And so these are difficult things. But other than that, I really don't know much more than you guys. So I appreciate your guys' coverage and fair coverage and appreciate that. So.
Mark, what do you make of the jurors asking the question of finding justification on one of the charges and not on another?
I learned a long time ago that you never interpret their questions, because it could be one person's question, it could be 5 people's questions, it could be something different. So again, we'll be ready to go when we're supposed to go, and we'll do another outstanding job and keep going and keep going. This is just the first step in the process.
Will this case automatically go to retrial?
Feeling right now?
Jason wanted us to pass along to you guys and the community how much he supports the jurors' effort and their fairness and impartiality, and he couldn't, he could, that's all he asked, is to have them try the best they could. And I think you remember voir dire, that's what I asked. Hey, we just want you to do the best job that you can do. We place jurors in impossible situations because they have to be clinicians. They can't use empathy and sympathy and that type of stuff. But the reality is they did the best that they could, and that's so justice was served today.
Mark, will this automatically go to a retrial?
Oh, that's not up to us. That's up to the prosecution, and those are questions that you'll have to ask them. So.
Can you tell us why so many of the alternates were used?
I don't know if I'm allowed to comment on that. It was more of, I think, Steve's telling me we shouldn't comment on that. We don't know all the specifics and stuff, but yeah, so I'm not going to comment on that. I apologize. So,
Mark,
I don't think it's fair to go into a juror's personal things or what's going on, stuff like that, and for that to be a part of. It happens, as you know. That's why we had 4 alternates, and so this is not unlike other cases and stuff like that. So.
Have you ever seen a judge declare a mistrial and then minutes later come back and rescind that?
The easy answer is no, but understand that the complications of this case and the complications of the situation, that there's no issue there whatsoever. So I wouldn't read anything into that. It's again part of the process. So Ms. Stevens is much younger than Mr. Nolder and I, and Mr. Nolder and I had together maybe about 67 years of practice, and when you combine it, and we have yet to have a case where you say, well, what about this, what about that? Every case brings new things, every case brings things that don't happen again, so.
Mark, as you mentioned, it's deja vu all over again. You were here, same situation, a couple of years ago with Andy Mitchell. What are your thoughts now moving forward, possibly with this case?
Well, first and foremost, the three of us are going to take a break and relax, reconnect with our families and others and people that we work with. But it's any case, when you look at it, you re-examine, what can I do this, how can we do this better, that better, things of that nature. So absolutely, so that goes with the process. So we'll be ready and to go forward anytime we're supposed to, and we look forward to it.
Do you guys want to add anything into that?
Mark was our spokesperson. You didn't want to contribute.
So, thank you guys, appreciate all the
Thank you, guys.
fairness. Yep.
So as you just heard from the three defense attorneys, Mark Collins, Caitlin Stephen, and Mr. Nolder, they said they've been here before. They were here a couple of years ago with former CPD Vice Officer Andy Mitchell. That also ended in a hung jury. That case was retried then a year later. That case was then, Mitchell was found not guilty. As you heard Mark Collins say just a few minutes ago that he doesn't know if this case will be retried. That's not up to him, that's up to the prosecutor's office. We have put that request into the prosecutor's office to see what they will decide. Back to you guys.
And Lacey, so much has happened over the last few days and the last week in this trial. Kind of an unusual situation I've never seen where 4 alternates actually ended up being on the jury of 12 after 4 jurors left. So a lot of different moving parts in this.
Yeah, part of it is just because of the length of this trial. The jurors were told the judge ahead of time during the voir dire process if they had any scheduling conflicts. And what we're kind of hearing is that just because of the length of the trial, they had previously scheduled commitments, some of them. We don't certainly know the case in all of these. The judge didn't go on the record and announce it, but that is just the speculation that those 4 jurors had some sort of conflict with the timing of the case.
All right, Lacey Crisp, following this trial from beginning to end for us right now, at least the end of this portion of it. We'll see going forward if there will be another retrial. That could be months down the line, but of course we'll keep following it for you. Again, today we are interrupting your program to bring you this breaking news about the murder trial of former Franklin County Deputy Jason Meade. Just a little time ago, the judge came back saying the jury had a hung verdict, so he has declared a mistrial, and they'll be meeting with the sides to decide where it goes from here. We'll continue to follow this for you today throughout the afternoon on 10tv.com and our mobile news app. And of course, we will have the latest for you on our newscasts, starting with the news at 4.